I'm Jackie.
I'm Kyle, and we have
Selective Attention.
We do not believe that crying during movies is an esoteric experience. Chances are there's been a moment or 12 during a Pixar movie that's tugged at your heartstrings.
Or maybe your favorite adaptation gets the waterworks flowing every time Aragorn tells the hobbits, "You bow to no one."
Yeah, and for the most part, these tears are expected, but every so often a roundhouse kick of oxytocin will just smack you upside the head and you wind up crying for like
no reason.
This can be especially disarming when it happens while you're watching something designed to scare you, not make you cry.
It happens to the best of us, and because it is spooky season, and because emotions, much like ghosts, have a way of creeping up on you, here's our selection of horror films that have hit us right in the feels.
And some TV shows, because self-control is not our strong suit.
Yeah. As an aside, we strongly feel that the horror genre is one of the best genres to explore the human condition, predominantly because of its ability to explore both the visceral and the psychological, intellectual.
That's not to say that horror films that stay on a surface level, that there's not a place for those films. We love those films. They're just not probably going to make us cry about anything. We do kind of think that our list is a little bit more contemporary.
Yeah, that's not to say that nothing pre-1990s didn't make us
feel
anything.
I think we can relate to these ones more. They speak to us. We also have our drinks of choice with us to kind of dull the emotional burden that we are putting on ourselves.
My first selection is the 2015 horror drama written, directed, shot, and edited by Perry Blackshear. They Look Like People. This is our favorite type of horror movie. Clean, slow, deliberate. The way Blackshear examines mental health in both of his leads is so wonderfully done. His commentary on males and their reluctance to share their mental health issues, how they sometimes wind up suffering alone, silently due to psychological and sociological factors, some of which are based on their perceptions of masculinity. This film gets me. There are a few moments that really stand out, but overall it's the friendship, the bond between these two men, and the trust that's given as the film progresses that is so touching. I have to give credit to Evan Dumichel for his portrayal of Christian because I know that guy. I'm friends with that guy. I've been that guy. His constant struggle with trying to better himself. I just watched this again recently, and the whole time I just wanted to reach into the television, grab him by the ears, and tell him that he is good enough.
My first selection is It, Chapter 1 from 2017, directed by Andy Muschietti. The story of It isn't exactly my favorite Stephen King book, nor is it my favorite movie adaptation of his. The reason It Chapter 1 makes me cry is a little more abstract. I experience a wave of nostalgia for a childhood I never had. We can look to a line from Stand By Me. I never had any friends later on like the ones I had when I was 12. Jesus, does anyone? I definitely did not have any friends like the Losers Club or like the ones in Stand By Me. The friendships I had when I was 12 were flimsy and unstable. I spent a large portion of my preteens in my closet with saltine crackers and a book. So watching a group of weirdos, much like myself, have such profound and beautiful friendships make me undeniably happy. And I had a similar, if less pronounced, reaction to the 1990 miniseries, but the acting and the performances of the 2017's children are undeniably more heartfelt and earnest. Especially that of Eddie. To me, he's the epitome of naive purity. His triumphant lover arm cast and the denial of his gazebos.
You know what these are? They're gazebos! They're bullshit!
That is the Jackie version of a Hallmark moment.
My second selection is the 2017 horror comedy written by Ryoichi Wada and Shinichiro Uda, also directed by Uda. One Cut of the Dead.
One Cut of the Dead.
The first 30 minutes of this movie, I was not having it. The actors were missing their cues, beats, blocking. All of it was off. I thought the issues that I was seeing were all sacrifices for the novelty of the one take. Then I thought maybe that's the joke, but it felt forced. Credits rolled. I thought about putting on another movie, and then I realized there was like an hour left of the film, and they let me in on the joke, and I felt like a complete chump. Both of us come from a background in film production, so we understand all of the difficulties that come with creating a movie.
カット割りなしのワンカット。最初から最後まで一度もカメラを止めません。
そんな無茶な企画あるわけないでしょ。
And to watch the character Higurashi struggle with connecting/communicating with cast, crew, and family, it's insanely accurate and totally satisfying when you are finally let in on what's going on. You watch the first act as a spectator, but then the film brings you in as a member of the cast, the crew, the family, and the bond is immediately formed between you and everyone else. So when things go poorly, or if they go well, you have as much at stake as the rest of them. The real I got the feels moments present themselves because of these struggles, because of Higurashi's acceptance as average, because of his desire to make his daughter proud. And then watching everybody come together in this final moment in order to help him achieve this goal with a really nice visual callback with his daughter. Little tears every time.
This is a happy cry. All right. My second selection is 1991's Silence of the Lambs, directed by Jonathan Demme. Adapted from the book of the same title by Thomas Harris, this film and book hold a special place in my heart. I can't place the exact date I first watched Silence, but I wasn't allowed to watch rated R films. So, like I did often in my youth, if there was something I wasn't allowed to watch, I would go to the library and I'd read the book.
Nerd.
Which I did with Silence of the Lambs. So as a teenager, I was highly invested in the story of Clarice Starling and Hannibal Lecter. It was not until I was in college, in film school, that I was actually able to watch the film fully unedited. It was here that I unexpectedly cried. And I did so for two reasons. The first, because it is an incredibly well-paced, edited, and acted film. The first interview scene between Hannibal and Clarice and the ending basement scene with James Gunn and Clarice are so very hauntingly beautiful that they, to this day, elicit tears. The second reason is much more personal and showcases how intently I latched onto Clarice as a character. You may not be able to tell, but I am a very small human being. My height is 4'11" and I'm almost always the smallest person in any room. I've had strangers pick me up without my permission on multiple occasions. I'm also looked down upon just by the nature of my height.
What's happening out there?
Shall I describe it to you? Or would you like me to find you a box?
My undergraduate degree is in a male-dominated field, and as such I found myself in many of the situations that Clarice does in Silence of the Lambs, such as the scene where she enters the elevator, filled with tall men, or when she's in a funeral home and there isn't another woman to be found. Her superior, Jack Crawford, even uses her femaleness in one scene as an excuse to leave the room, implying that she's too fragile for such gruesome talks. All of this just hit way too close to home and still does to this day. I feel like it's also important to note that the scenes with Clarice's friend, Ardelia, where she is equal to someone, they sit at eye level with each other. On equal and respectful grounds, they essentially solve the case, which every time I watch Silence now makes me smile instead of cry.
These next ones need courage. All right, switching gears, we gotta talk a little bit about horror television.
Yes.
Part of the reason we wanted to do this episode was because of these two picks.
Exactly.
Because they really, really got us. My last selection is 2018's The Haunting of Hill House, created and directed by Mike Flanagan. I remember when it first came out, I was really looking forward to just sitting down, seeing some ghosts, but then Mike Flanagan and crew went and created some of the best television that I've ever seen. We've rewatched Hill House like 2, 3, 4 times, and shit doesn't even need to happen. I just need to see little Nell and hear her talking about tea parties, or hear Luke say he's cold and then realize why.
It's a twin thing.
And I become an absolute mess. The Cranes are some of the most sympathetic, richest characters in my recent memory, and by the end of this show, I am in love with all of them. There are far too many moments that get me, but I cannot even see Oliver Jackson Cohen on screen as Luke without my heart dropping. Substance abuse has been prevalent in my life with friends and family, and much like They Look Like People and One Cut of the Dead, I know that character. I know Luke, and I know the struggle of being support for people like Luke. Luke's story absolutely destroys me. Thank you.
Reaching the end, my TV selection is the incredibly sophisticated 2012 through 2016's Gravity Falls. Not at all what I was expecting to be a tearjerker. It is animated.
Disney.
It's on Disney.
Yeah.
But this started really quickly for me. As soon as I think halfway through the first season, I was crying almost every single episode. We even had to put off watching the finale. Like, I wouldn't let you put it on.
No. Can confirm.
I knew I was going to be a puddle of tears. And I was. It's kind of like an animated X-Files where there's a lot of weird supernatural elements that come into play. It also has this great dynamic between these younger characters, these twins, with their great uncle Stan and the neighboring community of Gravity Falls. There are so many different storylines in this show that you can follow and fall in love with. There is loss, family finding each other again, and the dynamics not only of growing up, but coming back together. There is one scene in particular that I just have to say these lines to Kyle and he'll just get mad at me.
You talk about Mabel?
Little Mabel and her complete love and trust of her great uncle Stan, as they say Grunkle. They're Grunkle Stan, and she just says, Grunkle Stan.
Uncle Stan? 6, 5. I trust you.
And I'm gonna cry right now. Oh my goodness, it's just, everything is so sweet and pure and wonderful about this show. This is the show for me, and it gets me every time.
Got your emotional support animal?
I do.
Yeah.
I got Boomy.
Oh no.
Ah!
Goodbye, Booms.
My Booms.
You know, there was this study from this neuroeconomist, Paul Zak, and he said something to the extent of people that cry during movies are more empathetic and are more equipped to handle everyday challenges.
And there's also a recent study, there's also a recent study that states that horror fans are actually more psychologically resilient during the pandemic.
Well, then we got this shit covered.
So watch horror films and cry.
Those are two of our favorite things now.
Thank you to all of you that subscribed after our last video.
Yeah.
And if you want to subscribe to this one, we'll be putting out more content. I'm not even gonna say when, every now and then.
Yeah, when you least expect it. Like a roundhouse kick of oxytocin. It's gonna, see, we're coming full circle.
Yeah.
Full circle.
We're a ghost.
Yeah. We are ghosts.
So which horror movies made you cry?
In the meantime, follow us on Instagram at We Have Selective Attention and watch some spooky movies. Cry a little.
For us.